Borders shift not with declarations, but with silent restrictions. Canada's tourism boycott, aimed squarely at 7 USC states, signals a deeper fracture in cross-border mobility. The moves are not symbolic. They are tactical, and the consequences extend well beyond travel plans, touching trade, perception, and security architecture across North America. Subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what you're seeing on the ground, so you stay a step ahead. Global mobility is no longer anchored in open skies or highway corridors. It is recalibrated through sudden restrictions, targeted boycotts, and bureaucratic bottlenecks that undermine predictability. Canada's decision to single out Florida, Texas, Arizona, Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, and Alaska illustrates this shift. These states are now case studies of how regional tensions can reshape flows of people and money. The underlying message is strategic leverage, not tourism statistics. The decision reflects broader global currents. Borders are tightening as governments weaponize mobility to pressure opponents or signal disapproval. COVID-era closures created a template normalizing border manipulation as a tool of statecraft. Once considered extraordinary, restrictions are now standard instruments in the geopolitical playbook. Economic interdependence is no longer a shield. Even deep integration, as seen in the US and Canada corridor, can be disrupted overnight. National interest has trumped cross-border cooperation. That precedent is spreading as governments observe and adapt, making selective closures the norm rather than the exception. The boycott also underscores the fragility of assumptions. For decades, North America marketed itself as an integrated zone of travel and commerce. The new reality is fragmentation, where local policies trigger retaliatory moves that ripple outward. These dynamics align with patterns visible in Europe, Asia, and Africa. The global context is therefore less about tourism and more about control. Borders are shifting into active instruments of influence. Canada-AS boycott is both warning and signal. Mobility is now a battleground where strategy dictates access. Passports and visas were once tools of facilitation. Today they are instruments of restriction. Silent collapses in visa-free arrangements and the spread of electronic travel authorizations have created an opaque environment. Travelers discover shifts only at the gate, not through prior warning. The 7 states now under boycott highlight this creeping unpredictability. What emerges is a dual track. Official policy often promotes openness, while operational layers tighten access. Revocations of existing waivers, sudden introduction of new ETA requirements, and selective application of exemptions create a labyrinth. This environment leaves travelers exposed and governments with leverage. Canada's move against Florida, Texas, Arizona, Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, and Alaska exemplifies this duality. No legal walls are built, but procedural frictions create effective barriers. The outcome is indistinguishable from outright prohibition. This tactic preserves deniability while exerting pressure. The wider pattern is global. The European Union revises entry frameworks with little transparency, while Asia accelerates digital checkpoints. States no longer need walls. They deploy bureaucratic code to achieve the same result. Travelers carry passports that appear valid but functionally expire when political winds shift. In this environment, mobility becomes conditional, not on law, but on shifting alignments. Passports and visas are less travel rights than political instruments. The case of Canada's boycott illustrates how quickly those instruments can be recalibrated. Security now operates at the intersection of AI and surveillance. Borders are equipped with machine learning tools that scan documents, analyze biometrics, and cross-reference digital footprints. These systems are designed to profile risk, but they also expand state discretion over who passes and who is flagged. Canada's selective boycott amplifies these dynamics. U.S. travelers from targeted states may find themselves subjected to additional scrutiny even when not explicitly banned. Automated risk scoring allows governments to enforce policy indirectly, disguising restrictions as neutral security checks. The rise of digital profiles is central. Border systems no longer evaluate travelers as individuals, but as data aggregates. Purchase history, social media activity, and geolocation trails shape entry outcomes. For those from boycotted states, these factors can trigger delays or denials without formal explanation. The risk lies in opacity. Machine decisions are difficult to challenge. Appeals processes are slow, and most travelers cannot contest algorithmic determinations. This creates a climate where small inconsistencies, an address, a device login, a flagged keyword can escalate into denials. Ultimately, surveillance tools blur the line between security and politics. Canada's boycott of 7 U.S. states illustrates how digital infrastructure can operationalize policy while concealing its enforcement behind technical layers. Traveler perception now varies sharply by nationality and region. U.S. citizens once assumed frictionless access to Canada. That assumption no longer holds. Residents of Florida, Texas, Arizona, Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, and Alaska are now perceived not as tourists but as leverage points. Their presence triggers a political calculation, not a hospitality response. Contrast is critical. European travelers, for instance, may still encounter streamlined entry, while Latin American travelers face stricter vetting. Asian travelers navigate varying layers of trust, depending on their country of origin and geopolitical alignment. The result is uneven mobility that reshapes the global map of perception. Americans as a category face erosion of their privileged travel status. While not formally sanctioned, targeted measures undermine the presumption of open access. Canadian authorities are setting precedent. U.S. travelers can be segmented by geography, policy affiliation, or political symbolism. This segmentation ripples outward. Airlines, hotels, and service providers recalibrate their strategies, wary of reputational and operational risks. A traveler from Texas may represent not only an individual booking, but a potential flashpoint in broader U.S. and Canada relations. The larger point is that perception is now strategic. Nationalities are no longer judged uniformly. Within the use, regional identities matter. The boycott demonstrates how state-level politics can override federal identity in the eyes of foreign authorities. The risks extend beyond inconvenience. Detentions, secondary screenings, and summary deportations are now part of the landscape. For travelers from the 7 boycotted states, small procedural errors can have outsized consequences. An outdated address, incomplete declaration, or misunderstood question may trigger escalation. These risks are systemic. Border officials operate with broad discretion, supported by surveillance infrastructure. Once flagged, travelers face limited recourse. Legal pathways exist but are impractical at the point of entry. The immediate result is removal, not resolution. The reputational cost compounds the individual risk. Detained or deported travelers often face employment, financial, or social consequences once records circulate. Even a minor incident can ripple across databases, creating barriers to future mobility. For governments, these incidents serve strategic goals. High-profile cases reinforce deterrence, signaling to broader populations that the costs of non-compliance or mere affiliation are high. The chilling effect is intentional. This is the operational outcome of Canada's boycott. The policy may be framed as tourism redirection, but its execution carries real risk for targeted travelers. Consequences are not symbolic, they are structural. Looking forward, scenarios are converging. In the short term, Canada's boycott will likely hold, affecting Florida, Texas, Arizona, Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, and Alaska through peak travel seasons. Economic impact will compound political signaling, reinforcing the tactical value of targeted mobility restrictions. In the medium term, other states may be added. Policy alignment with federal or regional positions will determine exposure. Travelers from politically sensitive areas should anticipate heightened restrictions, even absent formal announcements. Globally, the template is spreading. Selective boycotts, backed by digital enforcement, provide governments with low-cost tools of influence. The strategy avoids direct confrontation while producing measurable effects. Other allies and rivals are likely to adopt similar measures. Operationally, this means travelers must adjust. Mobility planning will require monitoring not only of visas, but of regional political dynamics. Where one lives may carry as much weight as the passport one holds. Risk management must shift accordingly. The long-term implication is structural fragmentation. Global travel will no longer be defined by broad categories of openness or restriction. Instead, mobility will be conditional, targeted, and adaptive. Canada's boycott of 7 USC states is not anomaly. It is prototype. Mobility is no longer neutral. Canada's boycott exposes how borders are now instruments of strategy, wielded with precision against specific regions. For travelers and states alike, the lesson is clear. Access is conditional, leverage is embedded, and the rules can shift without notice. Stay informed, stay ahead. Subscribe now and join the conversation below.